In these Marco Ultra M series slit lamps, sometimes the slits tend to close by themselves, or they're slow, or they're very hard. And in a perfect world, the way to tighten those, there's a little access hole up here that's got a small cap on it with a razor blade. You can remove it. Just a little piece of plastic. And in here there's an access hole to find the brake nut, loosen it, and hold it in place, and then turn the knob axle counterclockwise to make it tighter and clockwise to make it looser. But I don't have a lot of experience with these, but the ones I've tried, that brake nut does not move very easily. So one way to get to it is take your both knobs off. Oops, that was on. Take off both knobs. And take off this brass spacer. You'll notice it's got a nylon washer on one side. The nylon washer goes towards the inside. This is called a flange. So it has a nylon washer there. It has two screws. By removing those, you can pull this flange L out. That's what they call it, a flange L. And on the inside of the flange, you have a nylon washer, a metal washer, and a waffle washer. All three of those have to be in there. And that waffle washer is what provides the tension by squeezing it. You can take out these two screws on this side. You don't have to take off this brass spacer on this side. You can pull the shaft out, and this is the shaft. This is the brake nut that is supposed to be able to be adjusted. And with a Allen wrench, either .035 or a .9 millimeter, you can loosen this Allen. That's what you're supposed to be able to access to with this hole up here. So if that were still in place, we'd be accessing it through that little porthole and loosening it. And we'd be holding it still in place. While you're turning the axle counterclockwise to tighten it. By doing that, it pushes this brake nut closer to the other side, because it's like you're unscrewing it, so it gets tighter on the other side against this waffle washer on this side of the flange. By getting that closer to this flange, it makes it tighter, and so that puts more tension on this axle. So what you might have to do is loosen that with your Allen wrench, and then if it turns, that's nice, but it's possible that the Allen has already messed up the threads, so it's not going to want to turn. So you could get your wrench and hold it, and with this being tight, just keep working it back and forth to try to loosen that brake nut up so you can move it. So you can turn it counterclockwise. So you may have to work with that. And if you were able to get it to move freely, then you could put it back in and you could operate it the way it's supposed to, as far as tightening it. But you may have to just turn it maybe a half to maybe 3/4 of a turn, and then tighten it, and then put it back in and see if that helps. So that's what we will do. We act like we turned it. Tighten this back up. We'll put it back in. So there should be a nylon washer in between this brass spacer and the flange on this side, just like on the other side. So there should be a nylon washer in there, and it should be tight, and this should still be able to move. If it doesn't move, then you need to clean that up so it moves. Okay, that's tight up against the flange. Tighten these. When you're tightening on this brass spacer, if you'll notice on the shaft, there's a flat spot. There's a flat spot. So at least one of those Allens that you tighten need to be on that flat spot. The other one, it doesn't matter. But one of them needs to be on that flat spot. If you'll notice all the way around, all the way over here, there's an Allen tightened there. So that one's good. I'll make sure that's tight to here, together, tightened on the flat spot, another one tightened. So that side's good. Now we're going to reinsert it back in. We're going to put our 2 screws back in. Both screws are in. Now we can turn it around and put the other side on. We've got our flange with the nylon washer, the metal washer, and the waffle washer in place in the correct order. We'll put that back on. Put our 2 screws back into here. Got both the screws in. Now we can put our brass spacer with the nylon washer in between. We've got to remember where our flat edge is. So we're lining it up. We know it's going to line up with that one. So we're going to make sure we get at least one of those even with this one. And when you're tightening it, this is where you need to squeeze this brass spacing. Squeeze the whole axle with your hand while you're tightening with the Allen. Make sure you're squeezing it. Now it's going to find that flat edge. If you've got it close, it's going to find it. And you can tighten the other side. And then check it. You can put a knob on. When you put the knobs on, go ahead and leave a little space. You can get like some cardstock, and as long as you're not screwing it in to one of the holes, just put it in. Put your little spacer like a piece of cardstock, so that it gives you a little bit of space, and then tighten the handle. And you can take this out, and you have a little gap. That's what you want. And then on the other, same way on the other side, you can go ahead and match this side if you want. And again, I'm going to put the cardstock in here to give us a little space. Pull it out. We've got our space. And then check it. Look through your binoculars at the slits and see if that did indeed tighten it enough to keep the slits from folding by themselves or sluggish. Or if it was too hard, if what you would have done would be to screw it in to make it easier. Screw it clockwise, that brake, so that there would be more space, and even though you're squeezing, there's more space and it would be easier. So that would be a way. So if you wanted to tweak it, if your brake nut is able to move freely, now you can look for that brake nut lock screw, loosen it, and then turn your handle, well, turn this one way or the other. Turn it to the right, turn it clockwise, to loosen, counterclockwise to tighten. It's kind of opposite. You'd screw it this while you're holding the brake nut clockwise to loosen it, counterclockwise to tighten it. If you're thinking about that brake moving one way or the other, that will help you to remember. I hope I didn't get confused myself. But chances are that that will not actually solve it. And the deeper issue is that your slit assembly really needs to be refurbished. The grease is probably broken down and it's not holding like it should, or it's gotten too tight or too loose. And so that's probably what the real issue is. But doing this method might be all you need, and it might be totally fixed. But if it's not, I think you're going to have to go deeper into here. Here's a diagram of what we were just doing. This is the shaft, the brake nut, and here's the washer configuration. You have your wave washer, your metal washer, and your nylon washer. If you lose that little Allen screw in your brake nut, that's a 2 millimeter by 3. That's very small, and you might find it, and you might lose it. So if you do, that's the size of it. But again, here's our knob, our brass spacer, and it's got a nylon washer there, and we have our flange, and the shaft goes through there, and then on this side we have also our other flange, our nylon washer, our brass spacer, and our knob. So that's that.